Well, the NBA is a results-based league, and nothing's more proven than when a head coach gets fired part of the way through the season. The Sacramento Kings have now officially fired Mike Brown from their head coaching role, despite him having an extension through the 2027 season. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this. Honestly, don't know if we play the intro or not, but hey, we're here.
Welcome to the number one place for
Let's
your
go ahead and
daily
get into it,
basketball
man.
news
So,
and analysis.
unfortunately, at this point,
NBA Central.
all right, there we go. I guess you guys can see me now. I have no idea what's going on. Restream is acting really weird right now. But the Sacramento Kings have officially fired Mike Brown. And the Kings are currently right now on a 5-game losing streak, I should say. And there's a going on with the future of the team. Reportedly, De'Aaron Fox is starting to become unhappy. De'Aaron Fox's management, Clutch Sports, just had a meeting with the Sacramento Kings GM last week, wanting to know what the future and the plan is for the team with him. And so right now, just it seems really unfortunate that Mike Brown, a guy who was the coach of the year in 2023, right, and that goes back to show how how winning coach of the year really means nothing. If you go and look at the history of the coach of the year award and how many coaches have been fired within a year or a season after winning coach of the year, it's really quite crazy when you're looking at all of it. And so unfortunately now at this point, like Mike Brown moves on it. I don't think that Mike Brown is a bad coach. I really don't think he's a bad coach. Now he's coached by any stretch of the imagination. I do think he's a solid coach that, depending on your roster, can take you to a deep length. But at this point now, the Kings are 13-8. They're on a 5-game losing streak. And your best player, and when that happens, when your best player is kind of unhappy, you have to start doing something. You have to look at something, and somebody tends to be the scapegoat when that happens. And at this point in time, yeah, it is what it is. Like like Mike Brown, unfortunately, is he made the scapegoat a little bit? Probably. He probably honestly is. Shay says this is a perfect example of why you should make sure that when you get a player or trying to sign a player to your team, you make sure he fits what your actual team is trying to do. Completely agree with you on that one. Completely agree with you. Like, and this is not to blame where the Kings sit completely on DeMar DeRozan, because it's a lot more than that than going on with just DeMar DeRozan. But DeMar clearly did not fit with how it looked like that team was trying to play and how their roster seemed like it needed to play as well. He just never really fit with that. And so there was always going to be an acclimation period to figuring out how to play with DeMar DeRozan. Now, when you add into that as well, the team's losing. You got this older player who's not really working for you. You gave up Harrison Barnes, who's kind of one of those blank slate players that he can really fit on any team and have a solid role. Like, he's not going to raise your bar, but he's not going to necessarily hurt you in most cases either. And the Kings sit in a place where they are right now. Like, Murray's taking a step back a little bit this season. Malik Monk, who started off the season playing fine, has not necessarily been playing up to the level that they hoped he was going to be either. And it now just leaves you in this spot where you have this roster with this very talented player in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. I do think the Kings have some talent on their roster, but they're underachieving. And when you underachieve, somebody's head is going to roll eventually. Now, this is a weird place to be put, because now Mike Brown getting fired, he signed a contract extension. They're going to have to pay him regardless for that, right? You look at you have Domantas Sabonis, you have a 6-man of the year candidate with Malik Monk, you got Keegan Murray on that team, you got De'Aaron Fox, you got a lot of talent on this team. And while De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan are all averaging over 20 points per game, you're not getting wins. And this goes to show you why stat production doesn't always equate to wins. And Mike Brown was hired on May 2022. So now we are a little at 2.5 years basically removed now, and he won coach of the year over that time and got. That's now, what are the Kings doing idea what the plan of the Kings are. I happen here. And the Kings could do this and not necessarily even hold on to De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox still could leave at the end of next season when his contract's up. But this is a desperation move by the Kings to make to try to make the moves necessary to keep De'Aaron Fox here. Make no mistake about it. This is all built around trying to keep De'Aaron Fox in the Sacramento Kings jersey. And they better hope that they get the rest and the coach right. Because the remainder of the 2024-25 season. And while I know that their season started off disappointingly, it's not like this season was a wash yet. This season still could have turned around for them with the right moves or something like that. But now you've put yourself in a position where I'm not saying that the whole season is necessarily just a wash for the Kings, but it's going to be really difficult to get footing. It's really hard for a new head coach to come on and to not only acclimate the team, but the team acclimates them and to come up with a system, right? You're picking up pieces at this point. And so the Kings now, we'll see what they end up doing for long-term for the coach, but they're going to move forward with more than likely an interim head coach and out. That's what it comes down to. But the Kings season has definitely been disappointing when you look at what they were accomplishing last year. They don't own their own first round pick outright, which this could be maybe a move to keep that pick. If it falls 1 through 12, they actually get to hold on to the pick. So if the Kings keep suffering this year, they could actually, they're one of a few teams that it's funny how a lot of teams that should have been fighting for playoff contention this year may actually end up in the lottery. And in a deepest draft, the Pelicans, you see the fall off that they've had. Now the Kings, with firing their head coach, already off to a disappointing start. If their pick ended up falling 1 in 12, and they keep that pick, adding a top 12, a lottery pick team already with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and Keegan Murray. And that's the best outlook for this team. Maybe a new influx of talent in can also help De'Aaron Fox convince you that's what they're hoping for. Maybe that's what they're hoping for. That's all I can really look at this and say. Shay, I could have told you that. Remember what happened with Dwayne Casey after he won coach? Well, it's not just that. I mean, Mike Budenholzer, not only did he win coach of the year, I think he also after he won a title, right? So yeah, it happens to a lot of teams. DeMar was never the answer for them. They needed a true second or third option, depending on how you view Sabonis. Agree with you there. Completely agree with you there. Audio tweak. Hopefully the audio is back working right now. Hopefully it's back working. Frank, scapegoat. Definitely a scapegoat. I think that you're absolutely correct on that this is absolutely a scapegoat move. He's absolutely been made the scapegoat. And there's enough, there's enough going on wrong with this team. And unfortunately, GMs rarely ever hold themselves accountable, right? Like the GM's the one who decided to go out and get DeMar DeRozan's team. And like I said, I'm not blaming everything on DeMar DeRozan, but a big part of why this Kings team hasn't necessarily taken the step up that people thought it would has to be looked at as bringing in a player like DeMar who has to play such a particular role on this team. I think that's a big part of this as well, that you cannot ignore that by just looking at, the coach, right? And listen, Mike Brown has shown himself to be a competent enough coach, at least in my opinion, to where he could have, with the right roster, he could get you out of this. And unfortunately, now he's not going to get that opportunity. So who they now bring in to be better than that, it's going to be interesting to watch. It's really going to be interesting to watch. I may over the weekend put together a list of teams and coaches that maybe they can take a look at, things like that. But the Kings have some very big questions that they're going to have to find some very serious answers for here over the next 6 months or so, because you got to try to put together. Funny enough, the Kings find themselves in a very similar situation that the Chicago Bulls did with trying to convince Zach LaVine to stay, right? Now, I think that they're further along in their process and they have achieved more than what the Bulls did at that point in time, where they were trying to convince Zach LaVine to stay, and they went out and got Vooch and Lonzo and Alex Caruso and DeMar DeRozan. But you still sit in a very similar spot where your player, your franchise player that you drafted to this team, you drafted him. The Kings don't have a lot of luck. They're not usually a free agent destination. They either have to get their players through drafting them or trading for them. And so because of that, you drafted this guy, De'Aaron Fox, to your team, and you should want to keep the homegrown talent they were last year with the light, the beam, and all that. They were a very fun team last year, and all of that has gone away at this point. It's all gone away. Shay says, I'm not going to say Mike Brown was the greatest coach, but Jesus Christ, man, he actually had those guys playing. It's not his fault that you had the wrong systematic player on the team. Agree. Frank also chips in how Mike Brown always had everybody accountable, the team and himself. And Mike Brown's seen and he's done a lot in this league. And it's really unfortunate, but Mike Brown's going to get another opportunity. Mike Brown's going to get another opportunity to coach another team, and he may take a year off. Like, he's going to get paid by the Kings regardless. And unless he signs another coaching deal, he's not going to get paid. But we'll see what happens there. The Kings could take a look at it. Several coaches out there on the market. Who was the coach of the Detroit Pistons last year? They could take a look at him. Fizdale could be an opportunity for them. So they got some coaches that they could take a look at for sure. And we'll see what comes along with that. But I just wanted to bring this breaking news. I thought that this, when I was actually, there's a NBA Central full episode exporting right now that I'm going to upload here in a second. But this broke right after I finished recording the episode. So I figured, why not live stream and talk about it? But agree, Frank. He'll be an amazing head coach. I completely agree with you on that one. I completely agree with you. I think that Mike Brown could do a really good, some really good work on the team's bench. I definitely agree with you there. And it just comes down to if he wants to accept an assistant role. Keep in mind, if he accepts assistant role, he's not going to get paid by the Kings, so it's probably going to have to be a head coaching role. But I would not be surprised if you start hearing Monty Williams' name around the Sacramento Kings. I would not be surprised if Monty Williams start being a name that, even if the Kings don't plan on interviewing him or talking to him, that at least rumors start picking up and they bring up Monty Williams as a chance to coach the Kings roster. I just wouldn't be surprised with that. I would not be surprised with that at all. So we'll see what happens there. But unfortunately, Mike Brown gets fired. The Kings now have to pick a different direction. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you guys are following the channel at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of